Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond, broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leha, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
Back at you and Gloves Off, and today we got two great guests on the Filipino martial arts side of things. So we're talking about a martial art called Lameco. I'm with Guru Roger Agbulos and Guru Hyle Campbell, and we're going to touch base on traditions, practices, issues, all that good stuff. How we doing, man? You doing good?
Oh, are we on now?
We're on. How have you all been? It's good to see you, Roger.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to once again for us to get reconnected because it's been a while. In fact, the last time I was in Laredo was what? How many years ago?
10 years ago, probably. No, not 10 years ago. Probably 16, maybe 16.
Yeah, but it was a great time because a lot of bonding there with our brothers in the luminaries of martial arts, right? We got a grandmaster from Brazil, and of course, masters and gurus also in the US. So I had a great time. I wish I could speak Portuguese like Professor here. It would have been a much better bonding. But anyway, I had a great time. So it's good to see you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate with all that the love and support having me here and Hyle. Thank you very much.
No, well, it's that way. We were talking about, when we met, and it's always been that fellowship that's involved inside martial art. It's never been anything about proving points. It's more about helping each other grow, and that's what it's all about. And I think we live in a world where everybody wants to teach somebody to go beat up somebody. But how about teaching somebody to be nice and saying, not today, and to avoid those confrontations in a roundabout way? I think that's when growth really happens.
I totally agree. I think like me and Hyle, we've been doing this Lameco Estig for the longest time. Hyle, how many years have you been under Lameco Estig? I think 15 years, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, but I started 1990 with during Edgar, my punong guru Edgar Sulite, way back 1990. I was with him until 1997, and until he went to the Philippines, and that's when it happened about the unfortunate event of his passing. But anyway, so we did this journey with Lameco. I started way back 1990, and it is just a great journey because it's constantly learning. So when you mentioned about let's get away from the negativity of what we love to do, which is passion, the passion of understanding martial arts, its wisdom, philosophy, but there's also the beauty of looking at it on a science point of view. So therefore, it's understanding the philosophy of it, because philosophy is the one that gives us the wisdom of understanding and the depth of learning about life, right? So I think that's a beautiful thing. But on the other side, which I mentioned about science, the science, which is what we focus, Hyle and I, it's not about the violence of martial arts. It may be the result of being able to to preserve one's life or somebody else, which is the beauty and that's the reward. But the science of it is that we focus on the techniques of the principles, meaning like economy of motion, non-telegraphic striking, balance with the movement of dynamic balance, and all of that's which is science based, and that's where the beauty of all the more what martial arts is all about, because it's kind of like chess in real time. But I think I'm talking too much ahead of everybody. But I'll
No, you're and, that's exactly right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Martial arts. A lot of people think it's about learning how to fight. Yes, it is,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Not
But again,
exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Not
but
all.
uh, but it's actually about preserving life and preserving those that are around us. And you get to that level after a while, it's more caring about the community than that you live in
Hmm.
than just being oneself's own, glorifying what we can do and going out there and proving it. And there's that as well. Because we all grew up with instructors that could take care of themselves, and they
Hmm.
passed that on to us, but they also pass it on to us with a care that for us to also be able to take care of ourselves. And I
Hmm.
think that people lose, when they say, what do you get out of Savat? What do you get out of Savat? Savat, what does it teach those that come in? It teaches them to have confidence in themselves, that they can be themselves, they can be their own men and women. They can stand up. They have confidence in themselves. And I think that's what the beauty of what we teach gives others, is that independence, that assure that I'm here by myself. I don't, you know what I mean? I can take care of myself.
It gives a lot of confidence to somebody. You're less likely to get into an engagement because you really have an understanding of what it means, right? And you're less likely to just randomly engage with somebody because of your ego. Because you can
Absolutely.
punch the guy, but you go, I don't have to, right? If I had to, yeah, I can. If it's a last resort, but I think most people who are martial artists, they're not the ones that are out there doing the violent things because
Hmm.
they know how to check their ego. They've been in a place and they can say, no, I don't have to. This is only if I really had to. Obviously, there's bad apples everywhere, but for the most part, everybody that I know that is a truly what I would say is a badass martial artist, most of them have the kindest hearts, and they
Absolutely.
and they spread that.
I agree. I agree with the fully, fully. And it's
Yeah.
about fellowship. Once you go into a school, into a place, it's that fellowship that you need somebody, you can call them and they'll help you out, and this
Right.
goes on for years after that. I'm still that way
Absolutely.
with people when I lived in France with people that we trained with every day, that we were sparring together to, and that was 30 years ago, and we're still friends today. We can call each other on the phone. You need something, here we are, even though we're across the ocean on the other side of the world.
Is
It,
that how
it,
you
it
got into Savat? You lived in
no,
France?
I
In
got
France.
into it. I was 6 years old, and I got my butt whipped, and my dad took me to my uncle. That's how I got into it.
Okay. Yeah,
And
martial
my
So
arts.
uncle,
so you're kind of going through your through life early on. You already earned what martial arts is all about through bittersweet. You have to earn it.
Yeah. Don't
you
come
know,
home crying.
that's exactly right. And yeah, I grew up with a dad that said, and my uncles were like,
Don't come
"Yeah, they
home
beat
crying.
they beat you up in the street. You come back, we're going to beat you up." So you have to stand up to that.
Yeah.
And but that's the way life is. And you know, Guru Raj and I have talked about it, and so have many others that are there. And we look at Laredo and we look at Stockton. It's so much alike.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
those family clans that were still around there and here, and they kept that alive, moving. And it's interesting. It's interesting how it is. Especially Carlito comes over and he says the same thing. Guru Carlito Bonjo says the same.
Yeah.
It looks like, and
It's a good friend. It's a good friend.
and that's what it's all. And that's what it's about. That bond, that fellowship, that protecting one of another. I think that's what it is.
Yes, yes,
Both
definitely.
guys.
But
Yeah.
there's other aspects of martial arts, if I may,
Go ahead.
kind of. It's just an insight. Um, when we're talking about martial arts, it's an understanding of movement, right? But some martial arts got stagnated with that concept of uh, kind of like theatrical. So, uh, I'm saying theatrical because there is that absence of application. But it has to be martial arts has to be a application based. So it's not martial arts when it's just the theatrical aspect of like patty cake, like when they do this hubad, there's no force, there's no intensity, there's no understanding of kind of a little bit of physics in it. So because there's an um, outgoing or incoming understanding of force, so there has to be a realistic application of what hubad is all about. So what I'm saying is that about like the theatrical aspect of it, it's not martial arts when you don't try to immerse yourself in the understanding of movement, having two non-compliant individuals under duress, like because it's spar based. So therefore, it does not need to be in the actual event of the street wherein it's life and death. Let's not get into that. But we should get into the practice of non-compliance with a guy who wants to take you out in terms of sparring, right? So you might get hit and you might hit, but there is the wisdom of learning from your mistakes when you get hit. And so the analysis here is that the theatrical aspect of versus application base is that you I don't think it's basketball when all you do is in perfect harmony is shooting from inside the key. But there is that aspect of basketball wherein there's nine other people. You have to understand the game because it is non-compliance, right? You have to block, you have to dribble, you have to understand the teammanship and including the aspect of individual, like for instance, in shooting. I mean, Hyle is a former Marine here, so he's good at this. So w- um, when the aspect of shooting is that you may be good in the target range. But when it comes to somebody wants to take you out, that's a different story. It's a world on its own to acquire that kind of skill set. So if we talk about martial arts, there has to be the application base of it so that all the other the science of it comes into play. The science,
Yeah.
the philosophy, the wisdom, the movement, the discipline, and all the nine. Then what's the expression? The whole 9 yards comes to play. So there is a flow that has to be understood. So when we're talking about martial arts, there's the beauty of it, man. But it takes some sacrifices of commitment and the passion. So that's why we're here together.
You know, I put this a little bit different. 'Cause Roger talks about the science of it, and he always talking about the body mechanics more so than most any instructors that I've dealt with. But I always kind of do the analogy of most schools are just teaching you the jab cross hook on the bag, and they're doing the bag work. Okay, you're doing the bag work. You did 1,000 reps, great, but they never got into the ring to try it. Doesn't mean that you're in there and the guy's going to beat you down, but that guy's got to be trying to hit you. You got to be trying to do that. And with Roger, to me, he's the ring coach. He's not the guy that told, "Hey, go do the 100 jab cross hooks over here." He's the guy that's in the ring telling you, "But when you're on the ropes, you got to do this. You move this way." That's when he's talking about the body mechanics. The science of it is how you move, how you deal with the other person, what your ranges are, how you pull them in, how you push them out. The footwork that manages all of that, non-telegraphic striking. What's your balance? I don't know how many times we're in a spar and he'll go like this. He's telling me, your footwork's off, you're out of balance. I'm gonna smack you, right? So he's the ring coach, and I think a lot of people end up just only doing the bag work, and they don't end up actually trying it out. Like, am I moving right while I do that? And when I meet a lot of people here who are moving past that, they're really great. A lot of them are like masters at all their curriculum, but when it comes to random footwork and random energy, their techniques are out of time because they're not used to doing it with random footwork, because they've been told that, you know, when I do this strike, I'm in this stance and I'm in this stance. But what happens when, you know, when you're in a spar and it's dynamic and you're doing this, then the timing and their ability to execute those strikes diminish because they haven't practiced in that part yet.
I understand. You know, we have a saying here that goes, "You cannot teach what you haven't lived," and
It's beautiful, beautiful.
you cannot teach something you have not lived. And in boxing as well as in savate, you have three differences, right? You have fighters that cannot teach, you have teachers that cannot fight, and then you have the rarity that the one that can do both.
Yeah.
And you see that, you know, you have you have like what you call Costamado, who taught Mike Tyson, and all those, you know, he was in his 80s when he taught him. Of course, Mike Tyson was an animal when he was 16, 14, 15 years old. You know, he could have gone over that old man for the longest time, but he understood that old man was teaching him the wisdom that Costamado was doing was a different entity. And that's what a lot of people do not understand. Some of these fighters that were the tough guys, were the fighters, were the ones with the experience. When they're younger, they age out, and you still have to respect that. And today, we have lost that respect to a title. And when you look at a title, a lot of people wear this like a badge, you know, grandmaster, grand blah 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 blah, supreme this, you know, they have titles that sound like pizzas, you know, ultimate supreme great grand pizza, whatever, you know, and
the meat lover special.
You know what I'm saying? And they can't fight the way out of wet paper bag, and you're
right.
So you're gonna teach me to do what? Understand? So titles do not teach, but teaches the internalment of that man, and that's what we've lost. We've gotten in the martial arts have gone so far fetched with the embodiment, like Guru Raja was saying, of the theatrics and the make believe.
Right.
Did I say that? Ooh, sorry.
I know I said the make. You said theatrics. I said the make
Yeah.
believe.
I did.
Translation.
You have to come back to the reality of the things, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you've never felt the jab, if you've never felt the fuete in your liver, you've never been up to it, and if you hit it and you're coming back to it, you know, you got hit and you're coming back to it. That's when you understand the application of it and how to, you know, and just like you all, we see a lot of people, we see a lot of mistakes going out there, and just because you're following Roger, I know the way Roger is. You don't make fun of him. You just kind of just smirk. Yeah, that's pretty good. Keep on walking, because you're training your guys, or like me, I'll train my guys the way it should be. And I hate when somebody tells me, "Can you correct him?" It's very hard, because number one, it's not my student, and if I correct him, I'm going to find might find something wrong. And if I correct them, and I did it once, the person got mad because I corrected him. But you told me what was wrong with him.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a friend of mine that took his kids to a local boxing gym in San Antonio. I live in Laredo. It was San Antonio, and I know the place that there. You know where he took them, and they all have flat noses. Why? Because they don't have a guard. It's not that they're tough. It's just that they don't have, their hands are down here.
Yeah.
So the kid came out, you know, he was 16 years old, been boxing since he was 13. Yeah, he can box, but now he has a flat nose. He's never learned how to pick up his hands.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying? So
Would that be the same analogy of like hockey players? Oh, they don't have front teeth.
yeah,
That's another reason. They put their hands. I
you
was
know,
one of those hockey guys.
no, there's not, believe me, there's a lot.
Okay.
But there's a lot of tough guys out there. You know, you got
Yeah.
tough guys out there. You're like, it's and we have to be realistic enough that we have to also know that we're not the ultimate, and I don't want to be
Right.
right. I just want to be better than myself that I was yesterday.
But also being realistic with ourselves
I like
about
that.
what we're training. And this is also something Roger always says to us when we're doing stuff, because, we've got Inosanto background, we've got other arts and things like that. And, we're asked to do things, and sometimes he'll be on the side, give us the evil eye a little bit. And he's like, why are you doing that? And, well, it's part of this thing. But the thing he means is, he says, if you couldn't pull that off in real time, you know that, right? And I go, yeah, it's just, he says, then so why are you practicing it? Is this, you're practicing something that you could never actually really use. It's only working because the guy's being compliant with you, right? So why are you practicing it, right? So just to be honest with yourself about some of the things, especially in a lot of the arts, and every single one of them has something in their art that has this, where it's just historical thing, maybe it's teaching you a little attribute here, but it's not something that you could actually really use in self-defense or combatives.
On that thought, let me give my insight, which is in line with what Hyle is saying. So there is some style, they offer the beauty of that that the complication makes it kind of amazing, and like the ultimate Avenger style, because it's so many. But when you complicate things, that is really the problem of combative application, because simplicity is still the key. So look at boxing, man. There's just a few combinations, but it doesn't mean that you're not gonna get knocked out by those guys. Be it with a glove or without the glove. So be in the street, because of that subconscious repetition that has been done over and over, even the understanding of them getting hit, and then to understand the timing and the application at its best is the simplicity. So therefore, if you cannot, like Hyle said, if you can't pull it off, why? Because there's in say combative, or there is there's just dozens, if not hundreds, of options. You know, it's it. You if I always say this in my seminar, I can't do a roundhouse kick 10 feet high, but there is several options, 100 of options you can do based on the simplicity of the technique. But you have to put um, some beautiful principles, which is non-telegraphic, the beauty of timing, and dynamic balance too, so that it becomes more effective, it's lethal. So that's why in FMA we talk about this. And I always ask, if I was just in London and Prague, and I do the same year in, year out to every event. What does FMA mean? And they go Filipino martial arts. But there is more to that than Filipino martial arts, right? And Hal, go ahead and say that. What is
The
FMA?
French martial arts.
Oh, French martial arts, right? No, no, that was yesterday. We had a conversation yesterday. Force equals mass times acceleration, right? It's the
Yeah.
old energy.
It's so the understanding of incoming, or the outside forces, is it's to understand and to absorb that reality gives us the wisdom to be a better fighter. When we talk about science, which is again, FMA is not only just Filipino martial arts, but the simplicity of understanding physics, there's force equals mass and acceleration. So therefore, it makes it much more effective when you do an interception because you're adding mass and acceleration. The force is 10 times or even 100 times better when you intercept, because not only is that the force coming in, which is the interception base here is that it is um, it's subtle, so unexpected, but there's
Yeah.
also the power which is shortened up with speed and power, because you're, instead of going through a long way, because there's the interception is why makes what makes it effective and beautiful is because of the geometry of it. Being intercept is, you block and hit. It's almost like not even a 90 degrees as you block and you hit. You're also you're doing this in a geometric angle, which is we call it ricochet. It's almost like a straight line but going for a ricochet. So with that application of interception makes it a formidable technique. That's why Sifu Bruce Lee says he has gave the world about the understanding of the art of the intercepting fist, right? Which is beautiful. But I think all martial arts has an understanding of interception. But anyway, I'm
No. You're correct. And you mentioned a word there that very few people talk about, and it's
mm,
called telegraphing.
mm,
Very few people understand what that meaning is, telegraphing. You have
mm,
so many people right now teaching martial arts that they're telegraphing. They're actually sending you an email telling you that at 3 o'clock p.m. they're going to throw you a punch. That's how far lost the actual knowledge of what telegraphing is. And telegraphing is something that when you have a person that understands that, his students are going to be much better because they're always going to be correcting that element going back. And sometimes those individuals that teach the pedagogy of not to telegraph have fewer students than those that just do whatever you want. Because those that do, when you harbor on your student not to telegraph, they think that they're doing so bad that they're going to go somewhere else.
mm.
It's a lot easier, and they're not going to get recorrected. And it's not that we're correcting that student to make fun of them or to belittle them. It's correcting those students for their own benefit and their own good. Because I'd look at it this way, and everybody, you can practice 100%. You can have your hands up here. You can be moving everywhere you go. In the street, maybe this is my 100%. In the street, I'm going to be more or less about right here,
Mm.
because automatically 25% is I'm in the negative because I'm in the street.
Right.
So if this is my 100%, I'm going to have my hands down here, and so on and so forth. Because of that negative, I'm starting in the negative 25% being in the street. And
This is
a lot of things change because guess what? What happens if I have jeans on? I'm not going to kick high. What happens if I have certain shoes on? What happens if I'm in a marble floor? What happens if it's raining? What happens if the guy has a jacket? What happens? So all those things come into play when it becomes a sense of reality. And you have to understand that, because what you are in the gym, on the dojo or kun or sal or whatever you want to call your training hall, you're negative 25% as soon as you step outside.
Yeah.
Period.
You got adrenaline going, unknown surroundings, all this, and almost always. I was just talking with Roger about this too, is because Roger really emphasizes the economy of motion, non-telegraphic striking, and I practice daily, daily, daily. But I watch my spars and I go, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? So I almost completely focus on teaching this very tight kind of engagement, because as soon as that adrenaline dumps, what you thought was really tight is going to be like this. You know, in the gym, like you said, you might be here, you're doing all your stuff the way you think, but then you get out there, your adrenaline's running, you like you said, your hands are down here, you're not really paying attention what's going on. You got all these other things. So I don't even bother like doing that because I go, you're naturally going to do that. Every monkey can throw a haymaker, right? But can you be, you know, tight about it, efficient, non-telegraphic, and keep your body movement in there as much as possible? So I really focus on that. Roger is always focused on that. So Roger will hit you twice and go, you were too wide.
What is the name of the monkey?
I don't know.
And and monkeys are very, very strong, man. And monkeys are, and
Yes.
they, I used to do this. I used to tell people that would come in, and because in Sabat you have Lacan, right? Correct.
Yeah.
I used to tell them, how do we practice to get better? And I go, tell your kid to get just a waffle bat, one of those plastic bats. He's 5, 6 years old, and tell him to come at you. They're going to hit you in so many different angles that you've never seen.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the street.
Yeah. He's not trained. The angles are going to come at some weird angle. You're going to go, what the hell? Why would anybody throw that? But it can't. How did it come from there? Like, what? You know, like, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just to connect with that thought, we in Lameco Eskrima, where we are really fight based. Although of course there's drills and there's also curriculum, but it's application based. So the application base here is that in our drills, even if it's drill with somebody or much more sparring, but in our solo attribute development, which is solo training, just like boxers when they do the shadow and they do the bag and all that stuff, the conditioning, that's attribute development, is solo training. So when we do the solo training, there's still, it's the same as with partnering with somebody for sparring or Huba drill and all that stuff, which is there's the dogma here is that we train how we fight and we fight how we train. So we kind of filter out the things that, like Hyle was saying early on, is that when we can't pull it off, why spend so much energy when there is options for that? The options being like the science of it, which is, I'm gonna say this now. We have acronyms that helps us understand or put that in our highest level of memory. So we have this subconscious memory of having to use this acronym, which is very simple, and it's we have that word Ben, right? So BEN, but it's not as simple, because when we drill and we have that absorbed to our heads, there is some beautiful lessons and the flow that we need to absorb in understanding this. Particularly, let me zoom directly on what I'm saying about BEN. B stands for balance, and the balance of it is not just balance standing up or static balance, just like the what they call Karate Kid, but in the motion of moving. So it's called dynamic balance, because dynamic balance gives us the understanding of being able to evade, but in the position of strength, so that you can counter. Because when you're doing extreme example, or a simplistic example, when you cross your foot, that is when somebody does that to me, that is where I will attack, because you don't have the structure of your balance while moving. So therefore, dynamic balance gives you the advantage, whether it's offense, moving forward, or defense. So that is dynamic balance. So you are always in a position of strength. So that's the B aspect of Ben. The E stands for efficiency, or better yet, economy of motion, so that you don't waste motions going out. Because when we're talking about combative weaponry, you have no chance at all when it's in realistic event. I don't think we can just do empty hands when it's outside. There are no rules of fair game. There's absolutely a million scenarios that can happen without the rules, meaning a bad guy will not go for, are you ready, are you ready, let's move. No, he will have a knife, which is illegal, right, as long as it's 3 inch, or a machete, because even in UK, when they say that it's not allowed, the bad guy will always have a leverage to have a weapon to be on an advantage. So therefore, the most important thing is to understand efficiency, which is economy motion, so that you don't waste movements. You will always be efficiently moving, so you have the advantage. And the last one is N, which we've been saying this a dozen times now. The terminology is non-telegraphic. You have, we can learn from like the animal kingdom. Like I watch a lot National Geographic, and that's the biggest lesson that we can learn from this technique, especially when we put that in martial arts as a leverage. The non-telegraphic is the ambush style of how animals go. They are they don't show how they will attack. They only attack at the optimum time, so that the ratio of success is high up there. So in the non-telegraphic, when you do this, you telegraph your move, your chambering. Not only is that, my expression is that I can see I can see you from a mile away because of your intent, right? With the very wide strike. And also, not only is the intent that you're showing, but also it takes longer for point A to point B on the target. So therefore, there is that questionable geometry that you are executing, rather than have this in this way, short point A to point B, is that you are longer point A to point B, which is 2 times to 3 times more slower because it's longer, and you telegraph your move. So that's why I'm saying the uh, the acronym is a beautiful and powerful acronym. Balance,
Absolutely.
economy, motion, and non-telegraphic, which is BN. We have so many acronyms, but uh,
And that's a great way to teach, because that's a great way of pedagogy to pass on the systems, you know.
I
And
like your
it
term, penado. Penado. Well, say it again.
Pedagogy.
I've I've heard it, but I have to remember that much more. Go ahead,
yeah,
Professor.
and I tell people the same thing. It's a formula, you know, and the reason how you do things, you know, it's an equation, and that, you know, you have to be yourself, and you have to go. And I take it like this: a lot of people want to get ahead, like I said, they want to get so far up in rank that they forget the basics. They have no basics.
I like that. We have the terminology, or we have the expression, right? And I always ask this every single seminar that I do. I always ask people, is that what is the definition of advanced technique? And they all have that dozen of definitions, which I say this is the bottom line. Advanced technique is mastery of what you just said, Professor.
The
Mastery of the
basics.
basics. That's it.
Basics. And you know, Grandmaster Emperado, from Gajo Campo used to say, "A man that's good in his basics, it's a hard man to beat."
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
well, what did Sifu in Sifu Lee, right? And he always says this. And well, he's not. He always says this, but this is a powerful thing coming from Bruce Lee, right? Be wary of the man who does
One
one
kick 10,000 times,
10,000.
not the
Yeah,
one that does 10,000 kicks one time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's all about basics, and you have to regroup the basics and continue going over the basics and reconnecting back with the basics. And students tire when you have a commercial school, and all of us, and I'm going to break the commercial schools right now. When you have a commercial school where you have 100 students and you go over, you're going to lose a lot of them because they don't want to do that. They just want to, they want to be like a McDojo, want to get ranked and want to be a black belt and get out of the way.
Right,
But
right.
when you start looking at the actuality of people learning and understanding, those are when students learn and start producing the art.
I think what kept us from there, because there's a lot of basics going over. I'm still doing basics. I'm still beginning to understand what Roger had been telling me all the way from the beginning. I thought I knew what he was talking about because I knew what a broken strike was or whatever. And it still took me 10 years to understand really what he meant. And we learned by I keep getting hit. And always we would be saying, he's so fast, he's so fast, he's so fast. And it wasn't so fast. We were inefficient and he was efficient. Because now they're saying that about me. Oh, he's so fast, he's so fast. I go, I'm the old guy here now. I'm not faster than you. I'm just not over swinging. I'm not doing big movements that take me out of configuration where you have an opportunity to counter. I'm shortening. This is the efficiency, economy of motion, going from one strike to the other without wasted things. And when people come and train, especially if they've done anything before, and even if they haven't, and you go, okay, hit this thing. The first thing they do is this.
Yeah.
And then I hit you. Wow, you're so fast. No, your blade was here. All you had to do is hit me, right? And then wait, deal with whatever my reaction was. But if your first thing is this, I hit you. And so this is something that you have to train out of yourself, and it's easier said than done. But once you can become an efficient fighter, where you're not doing this every time, or I hit you, but I want to hit you again, so I have to go like this again, right? Or I go like this again, instead of like Roger was saying, I hit you twice. I deflected, then I hit you, right? And so that was one movement, but it was a deflection and hit versus I blocked, now I hit, and I'm gonna hit you again, and people tend to do this as their natural reaction. Anytime you go hit it, they go like this. I'm gonna hit you.
Absolutely, and that's what telegraphing is. That's what we were coming out to. And I think the best thing out of all this conversation is non-telegraphing. Don't telegraph. Don't.
Everybody says it.
Yeah.
But when I watch their training,
not everybody says it. A lot of people, when you tell them about telegraphing, they don't even know what the word means. Okay, not everybody. Those that say that they're talk about it is because those that when I don't know, those that say telegraphing like you all, it's because you practice for you not to telegraph, and it might be common in your schooling, but that's not common worldwide.
Yeah. This is part of what Roger means about the science of it, because it isn't really just about the specific technique. It's about how you deploy and apply that technique with non-telegraphic economy of motion. That's what he meant about the scientific part of it. It's not just, oh, it was at this angle and that angle and this punch or that punch. It was, okay, how you delivered it and how you recovered from it, so that way you're not leaving yourself open. So it's kind of gets more into that versus the specific, you must adhere exactly to this curriculum combination, right? There's curriculum combinations, but that's not the important lesson to me. It was how to be efficient, right? How to be non-telegraphic. And that right there is like changes.
That's what it is. And that's what separates arts. That's what separates teachers, is that right there. There's a lot of boxing out in the world. Boxing is probably the most popular martial art around the world. Everybody does boxing. I don't care where you're at, there's going to be a boxing gym somewhere.
Yeah.
And everybody knows the jab, cross, upper hook, hook.
Yeah.
Not everybody becomes a world champion. How many people do boxing, and how many people are world champion in boxing? Very, very, very few.
Tiny.
And even regional Golden Gloves, and then state Golden Gloves, and Olympians, and so on and so forth. Right? The numbers start dwindling smaller. What I'm trying to get at is those that go forward are the ones that have attained the basics, attained it to the point that it becomes natural, and attained it to the point that the reflex and everything are secondary. And
Yes.
that's what training goes for. And when you have those schools, it separates them from others. And those schools, being those teachers that are teaching it, those gurus that are teaching it, they'll produce students that are going to be more and more, they'll be proficient in the long run. And a lot of people don't see it. They might see a school that teaches that has 4 or 5 students, right? And then down the block, they might have a school that has 70 black belts all yelling at the same place at the same time and in the mirror. Great.
Right.
They're totally two different martial arts schools and two different performance levels when it comes to reality. A lot of
Yes.
people don't understand that. The masses do not understand when we talk about telegraphing and such.
Yeah.
That separates teachers from others.
And the guy that gets really good, like you said, he's mastered the basics in his mind, right? So we've mastered the basics, but then what you've done when you mastered the basics is you realize that you got to practice the basics, because there's just a single jab cross hook. There's so many ways that can be delivered, so many energies, so much different footwork. It's this footwork, it's that footwork, it's this bobbing, we bobbing that way, whatever. It's the same with the Eskrima. Is so you're still practicing the basics. This is the advanced part, right? Where we're saying it's still the basics, but now I'm mastering it in my body, and it becomes what, like you said, I'm not thinking about it. I'm reacting, right? And I'm reacting based on my training. That's what we say: train how you fight how you train how you fight. Get in there and to put that, so you're reacting naturally because of the number of times you've practiced that same move over and over again. You're not thinking, if you go into a fight thinking, okay, I'm going to do a jab cross, you probably already lost, because you went in there, something happened, and you saw the opening, and you responded, right?
Absolutely. Let me ask you this question: What have you, when you started, Roger, to now? What has changed in Lameco? What
Well,
was it different?
um, for me and Hyla I've talked about this because we've done also some interviews, podcasts, but that's a very very good question. It's like somebody asked, like, um, do you think you made Lameco better today after Edgar's passing because you evolve and all that stuff? And I will say this in my answer to your question, which is a beautiful, honest question. Is that for what I am now is because of Punong Guru's teaching and wisdom. So um, I am a better student because of what I remember my basics coming from him. But those combinations kind of added and amplified over the years because of the failure aspect of when I got hit. I reflect on it and then I watch the video probably more than 1,000 times. So therefore, it adds up to the wisdom of the failure aspect of it. Because when you reflect and you look at the 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 possibilities that you could have done better, makes it a beautiful win-win situation. Even if I got hit, not only like, it's not like I lost for the force. No, to me, I will even take in the highest level of learning when I got hit, even one time from that 3 minutes or multiple opponents, one after another, because I'm doing seminars and I spar anywhere I go. So it with even one hit from the entire, say, if I may, from 5 minutes from different people to 10 minutes, or three people, five people, four from different location. Even with I got a hit is more than anything for me, because to me I take it to the highest level of learning, because to me one hit is one hit too many. If that was on the street, I would have ended up 6 feet below the ground. That's why I study that in 1,000 times of the video, trying to learn from my mistakes. And that's why
Absolutely.
when we do seminars, Hyle and I, we spar a lot, from each other, from others, and even from the beginners to advanced and all the stuff, because every strike is the same, because every strike is that you can able to resolve it, counter it, but it just has so many elements involved. But that is too much information. Well, you have to do these basics of that conditioning, so that it's the same as Michael Jordan. When he does the last 2 seconds or 1 second shot, it's that, and he wins. Six rings, right? MVP, goats of goats, greatest of all time. And you know what Tim Gordon says? This is the personal trainer of the goats of goats. Not only Michael Jordan, also Kobe Bryant, Olajuwon, Charlie, Charlie, what's his name? Uh, um, yeah, anyway, all of these greats, not only in football, in also baseball, is that when Michael does it, it's not that he has just done this. He has done this more than 1,000, 10,000 times in his head, in his practice. So it's the same as what we're talking about here. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and you see it, and you see that because once you get that obsession inside to become better every time you go train, that's when you're going to start seeing yourself take off.
yeah,
And there's a difference between an obsession of learning
mm,
and an obsession of wanting. I can be obsessed on wanting something over here, but that I'm not going to be. But my will doesn't take me there. It's when once you understand that you want to learn and you want to learn correctly, and you found that you're going to be great. And that's what it is.
the obsession, but what you're saying is a beautiful thing, because I'm gonna compliment
Unless you
you.
ask our wives, then they'll go like, "Why are you guys going to the gym again?"
Exactly. But this I will connect with what the professor is saying. The beauty of the difference with somebody that's obsessed, right? Rather than just their their there's a difference. The diehards, oh, but more the obsessions, because in their condition, in our conditioning, um, we we make it much better in our repetition, because of that muscle memory. But it's more than that. We we put in plyometrics, which is adding strength to our repetitive workout, which is heavier, heavier stick, or you know yeah, so putting plyometrics, so you become better in the performance, like athletes, world
Yeah,
class athletes, because your muscle development in the twitch muscle is more functional than the gym that they use for the weights. It is the functional aspect of plyometrics in the application of weaponry, in which I'm going back to what just Hyle said. You train how you fight. You fight how you train, with the inclusion of plyometrics, and that's obsession, right? So that's, thank
I
you,
think this
Professor.
kind of goes just to kind of answer my observation with Guru Rogers. We've talked about this too. Is Punang Guru crafted a great system where he put together and he showed these guys in his backyard, come and show me, right? I'm going to show you how to do this. It was a great time for these guys to come and learn. And then when he passed, Guru Roger kept on doing that. He's still doing the basics, but he whittled out it through experience those things that he couldn't pull off in real time. So that was a great technique, but he's not pulling it off. The chances of success are lower than I want it to be. So he just kept on honing and honing, and it got tighter and tighter and more efficient. And so it's not totally different, but that science he's talking about, that twitch muscles, adding in the plyometrics to kind of make it more a refined training program for that specific ability versus the old school. Hey, let's get some sticks, we'll do some angles, whatever. That's all great, but in his mind, he's moved beyond that. It's like, okay, how do I get my body to perform at the right level to do that at a level that's up here, and to me, that's what I've learned from him. So even in the basics, if you've trained with any of the backyard guys, they all have this energy of, like, when I'm training with you, we're training. It isn't patty cake, and then I see guys that maybe, somehow got Lameco from something through somewhere else. And then you go, you didn't train with any of these guys, because they would have smacked you for training like that.
And to bring a point, what you said is very well. And when I was becoming a professor, I was told, never teach somebody how you fight.
Yeah, it could be.
And I said, because you're going to fight one way. You teach them the whole system, and they're going to choose things in the system that is going to be good for them. Then you teach them how to fight.
Yeah.
Because not all combinations, you might hate them.
Yeah.
But you still have to show it to them, because that one combination that you hate might be the combination that individual student picks up and becomes the best at.
Yeah.
And that it stopped me, and I was like, and I think I've kept that promise, to keep it alive and keep on moving. I don't want them to fight like I fight, right? I want them to fight like they fight, and I want them to understand what they have, and you teach it all. And if you can't do this part, but they can do this great, beautiful, then you perfect them into that.
Yeah. So Lameco has a beautiful thing that comes from the campo, and Roger didn't actually teach us this way, but he did. There's the moves in Lameco are fairly basic. They're simplistic, but there's a handful of them, and the way they employ it is everything is mixed. I should be able to flow from almost anything to anything. And so even though I'm teaching you these things, and the combos might be 3, like a jab, cross, hook, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. Every one of them can flow to the next, to the next, to the next, and you learn how to layer it. So even though I teach you this layering, it doesn't have to follow this specific recipe. Maybe my entry was extra long, and then we really got into engagement. And then I got to get the hell out of, move out of dodge and, jab out, whatever. But what happens in those pieces can be anything, and they should all flow to whatever based on what you've trained and what's happening at the moment. What angle is he giving me? And if I'm over here, I got a response. If I'm over here, I got a response for this. So wherever I'm at, there's a response. And you just learn to flow from technique to technique, not based on, the numbers, but, where's my body going? So it's not like a lockstep thing. It all meshes. You should be able to go from one technique to the other, and so you learn it.
In addition to that, what Hyle is saying is that when you mesh things, it becomes a universal application to anything that we do. So it's the same as in our of where we came from, which is Lameco from Punong Guru Edgar Sulite. That's the reason why the beauty of this Lameco as our system is that it involves the three ranges, which is largo, medio, corto, long range, medium, close quarter. When I was just most recent in Europe, um, they see the beauty of when I did a long weapon, which is on the largo range, and then knife on knife, which is into the medio, and much more on the tactical aspect of which is self defense and close, extreme close quarter. But it meshes with the exact same principles all throughout. It can't be you have to do this in 20 years and then you have to adjust now, like, because there's a difference between the stick and there's a difference between the blade and there's the difference between the principles has to mesh, has to be applicable to everything, at least for the most part. That's why the simplicity is the key. But what going back to what you asked, the question with Edgar Sulite, Professor, is that I still, in my head, in my heart and soul, is what among the a lot of things that Edgar taught me. What stands out is like the uh, the visualization is the most important thing, and then the intensity that goes
Absolutely.
with your visualization, because for if I may, modesty aside, if uh, I'm not a guy that fights like every single time of a meeting, because you got 50 people in your dojo, and you fight 2 times to 3 to 5 times a week. I'm not that guy. So that my last spar was when I was in London March 15. And before that, I the sparring that I did was 6 months, 7 months ago. But here's the most important thing that connects from Edgar's teaching about the visualization and intensity, is that my performance when I spar is because of the efforts that I do, which combines the drilling with with somebody. So that's why we can spar, and the combination also of solo training, which is plyometrics and all that's your own training. But
Sure.
the product of what I'm able to execute is, I would say, about the 80 to maybe 90% because of personal training on my own. So so when you do when on my in my opinion, when you do your solo training, aside from getting into the technical aspect, which is the 45 degrees of here, non-telegraphic over here, and the bug suck instead of the chamber, and the and instead of the wide strikes on the horizontal, you use more of that risk factor, because you're using the uh, the optimum speed and power from the tip. So it adds speed and power with less effort. So that is all the product of solo training. So you develop certain um, not certain, um, but you develop a lot of these attributes because it builds on to your muscle. It gets into the strength, um, timing, confidence, and everything. So you people gives me they tell me all of these excuses that not they're not able to train because they have nobody to
To
work.
train with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but to me
You
that's
train
just
by yourself. You
an
should be able to
excuse.
train by yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
You should be able to train by yourself. You should always be training. You should always,
Let
if
me
there's
add one more thing before I go with that solo training. So, in that visualization and intensity that you go with that plyometrics and repetition and all that stuff, is what is important here. In the visualization of what you do, you have to picture the movement of your with your opponent giving you a strike in your head or your knuckles, so therefore when you do the repetitions of that specific, you train how you fight how you train. So it is kind of like it is specific to a design of when you are going to get contact in your mind. So therefore you kind of reverse engineer that, so it becomes functional. So that repetition has to be in that condition of intensity, in all intensity, and almost in the same condition of when you are sparring with somebody alive or live, so even in your head you have that condition of nervousness and all, but you have to get over that nervousness to split seconds so that you get it over with, because just humans, we're not like tigers and lions that has that instinct. We are human in our thinking. So even the special forces and all, I read those books too. I learned from them. But the most important thing about their training is that how to recover faster. So therefore, in that condition of my repetition has to be the actual situations of emotional movement and nervousness. Get over it, and then the actual visualization of the strikes. So it becomes just like Tim Grover said, the the coach of the goats, the 1% of the 1%, is that he said Michael Jordan has done this thousands of times in his head. That's why he's confident. So to me, when I do this workout on my own, the solo attribute is that I am sparring and I don't want to get hit. So therefore, I have those plyometrics, I have those timing, half beats, and all the stuff going to my head. So that's the thing that comes so strong with Edgar Sulita's teaching. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And you made him proud because you've continued with it, and that's the way it is. You know, an old teacher of Savat, his name was Silvian Salvani. Yeah,
what's
I
his
met
name
him.
again? So,
Silvian Salvani was his, and he was when I met him, he was in his 70s, he was 78, going on 80. Okay, back then he was maybe might have been 80 years old when I met him. He was an old, he was an old guy. I was in my 20s, when I was there, and the thing that he said was, what's important is not when the teacher dies. What's important is who he leaves behind, because you can have a student of the teacher, but might have not been the best one. He might have been the beginner. He's just the only one that's teaching, so his knowledge is not that more. What you leave behind, you better leave behind somebody that's capable and has that obsession to continue moving forward. And it never really dawned on me until later on in life that those words resonated of what he said, because it's true. Because you have a lot of systems now. The teacher was great. The teacher was phenomenal, but he left behind people that did not have that obsession or did not have that acknowledgement or did not have the know-how. And the system was up here when that teacher was there, and all of a sudden it's dwindled somewhere else because of that essence, that little thing that was there. The important thing is not when the teacher goes, it's who they leave behind.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard somebody say it's harder to find um, a good student a lot than it is for a student to find a good instructor, right?
Absolutely.
Because you get students that will come and go. They may be a great instructor, but if they don't have that passion, then it's in and out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
'Cause
Well,
you
I
know,
want to thank.
you
Go ahead.
asked Roger real quick just to end on here. Roger, you asked Roger about his time with Punanguro. Not once, and you know what made it better or whatever. Not once did he mention angle one, angle two, this kind of strike, that kind of strike. It was about economy of motion. It was about his training methodology. It was about plyometrics. It was about how he trains, and that's the thing that I think differentiates him, and is one of the things that he's actually polished in Lameco is he goes, how do I train this? So even with his solo training, he's still amazing to you know, have as an opponent. You know, he's efficient, he's fast, and he knows what he's doing. And to me, that's the thing that he's made, you know, I think polished on. You know, all the guys that trained with Punanguro have their piece that they polished on, but Guru Roger really made it. You know, he added on to it his methodology of training and the science behind it that makes it really efficient.
Going back
Absolutely.
to Professor, it's again, it's the word is obsession, right? Yes, sir. Yes,
You're
sir.
not obsessed with training and learning.
Yeah.
You can have more degrees in a thermometer. You're not going to be any good.
I know that guy. I know that guy.
But anyway, it was great to have you both here. We'll do it again, and I want to thank you guys there. And time's running out, but for everybody out there, you all stay safe. You all be safe, and God bless you all.
Thank you,
So-
Professor. Thank you,
you.
Hyle. We'll work out soon.
We'll
Thank you,
work out.
Professor.
We'll get together this year for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Until next time.
Much love to you, Professor. Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you, Hyle.
We'll see ya.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.